Welcome everyone to our lunchtime talk. I'm Brittany Wellner-James, Director of Development and Fellow at Jesus College. And I'm joined today with Mandy Franz, Associate Director of MICA Architects. Mandy, you're no stranger to working with iconic Oxford buildings and introducing new designs that are sympathetic to existing ancient structures. You led the design of the Corpus Christi College Auditorium, the Queen's College New Library, and the early stages of the H.B. Allen Center at Keble, as well as projects with Hartford and Pembroke colleges. It's clear we knew that we were in safe and seasoned hands when we chose you and MICA to lead on the redevelopment of the Northgate site for college. So thank you so much for joining us today. So Mandy, if I can, just to start, now that the scaffolding is coming down and we're beginning to see the new facade from Corn Market and Market Street, I wanted to ask, is this the most exciting time for you as an architect? Is it the time when there's flesh on the bones, the moment when we cut the ribbon and the building comes to life? Or does the excitement for you start at a much earlier stage?
Thank you, Brittany, for the question, and thank you for having me today. It's a real privilege to speak to you all and just to talk through the process and everything. And yeah, just to answer your question, obviously it's very exciting to see the building being revealed slowly, but it's exciting from day one. There are various stages of that we go through, and we have a little presentation that I will show you some key moments in the design that myself and the team here at MICA and all the other amazing consultants that have been helping us develop this project have been gone through and how we've developed it. But yeah, in principle, I personally find the early stages nearly more exciting than the latter ones. I mean, there will be a moment, hopefully, looking at the building fully revealed, which is also very exciting when everybody actually sees the building, but also using it. So maybe a year in, once the college has really moved in, or the students have moved in, and then it will be exciting to see how it's working, really. I am going to share some slides with you. I'm just bring them up, and I will try to keep an eye on the questions, but I believe that we have them later. So if I'm not responding to one immediately, please forgive me. We will pick them up afterwards.
Absolutely, there'll be time at the end, Mandy, so don't worry.
So I hope you can all see my screen. I jumped straight up, it should go to the beginning, not so you should all not start at them in the middle. So here we go, an image of the site and of Jesus College from 1944, when everything was still the M&S site, which is what Northgate was before. What we refer to when we say Northgate or Northgate House sometimes is this block where the cursor is hovering over. So just as you walk down Market Street and you're hitting Corn Market Street, on that corner was a very 60s block, which maybe some of you will remember. There are some pictures later from how it looked, but we found just the research very interesting and the review. But just going even a step further to our research, like the competition took place in 2016, seems quite a bit away now. And when we were invited, we were very excited about it because the college obviously did a lot of work prior to us even being engaged and being approached. There was this the strategic plan that we received, a little image at the top, which probably most of you will remember and have looked at and seen, which outlined very clearly a vision for the college, and also which included the Northgate site and included how that can benefit the college, the wider city, which we were very excited about, to get such a clear vision from a client. And then also just, I mean, the site and Jesus College itself is in such a crucial position within the city, between the Gown and the town on Corn Market. The block itself is such a important block, not just for the college, but also for the city, how it can improve. And we'd go to that back to that later a bit, how it can improve Core Market and Market Street, and the vision to open up to the city, which was very exciting. This sketch at the bottom is from the competition, as are the little diagrams at the top. And also the brief in the strategic plan, but also in the competition plan, was very well defined already, which included retail, which was very important because it is a commercial street and it has frontage that we need to address. But then also academic spaces, which is this little red area here, and then a lot of student accommodation, particularly postgraduate accommodation with welfare facilities, and also lots of landscape space. The college has this that has all the quads and has already beautiful landscape, but to add to that and to give it more diversity, perhaps.
Great. I mean, this is so exciting, and especially just seeing that older image of college, you said from the 1940s, and the space. And I'm sure some of the alumni and audience on the call today will actually remember the M&S site and what college, what that bit of college was before. So I just wanted to ask if you can remember, actually, you said, you know, the bid and the competition was 2016. A lot has happened, of course, in the meantime, more than we could have ever imagined. Can you remember that early process of the early stages of the design? Can you name some possible references, either from historic buildings within Jesus College or from other architecture around Oxford or even further afield, which might have inspired that early design process?
Yes, I mean, the early design process was design, but also reviewing the brief again with the college. So that was very important. But then also going back to perhaps what we sketched at competition stage and questioning it. And one element, which perhaps seems very logical and quite obvious perhaps, is that obviously the college has the first quad and the second quad, which form how students, alumni, staff are navigating their way, move through the space, use the space. Also, you have the dining hall and the chapel, which are woven into this language of quads. So one of the key elements for us was to bring a new quad to this new site and to develop a language that is around quad. So you have the map, the 1850 Hogarth map at the top, which is before the M&S site was developed, and you still have lots of smaller plots on the current site. And in this transition where it becomes a college building, I think we felt that it was important to give it that shape, particularly for the upper floors. We go into that later, but to form that was part of and key part of our design from day one, and it was developed more, and the access routes into it and the transitioning between the various quads. You have, like, from the second quad, you have this very nice little route through to the third quad, which where you go through this route and then you are spit out onto the third quad. And there are similar transitions as we will transition through what was the Fellows Garden and will be opened up more, and then we're transitioning through into the fourth quad. That was one of the key decisions. Another key decision in the design process, which we worked through with the college, but also with the statutory bodies, the Oxford Design Review Panel and the Oxford Preservation Trust and various other bodies, is how can we respond to this beautiful skyline of Oxford? We have so many beautiful buildings. This is a view from South Park. Some of you may know that. And how can we also view into the site, but also view out, and how can those both of them can interlock and create the best for both parties, the city and the college? And one of those studies was to study the tall buildings in Oxford and particularly the gatehouses and buildings that are similar to gatehouses, like the church isn't, but the shape is similar. So we looked at the heights of them and where they are sitting, how they are penetrating the skyline, how the skyline is affected by it, which formed what will be soon being revealed as well. It's still fully in scaffold, so you won't see it at the moment, but like the gatehouse for the new project, which is on Core Market, relatively close to the Fellows Library elevation. And that was also a very early design decision. You may have seen in the competition scheme, we had a tall element.
Oh, I think, Mandy, we've lost your voice connection.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
There we are.
There we are. That was actually David Stevenson trying to call me. So
that is our property director here at college, for anyone who might not know David. Naughty David. All right.
Probably should just turn my phone off, but Market Street and Core Market Street. So we had a taller element on this corner, but in discussions and in reviewing the massing, that was quite a key decision to change that, really.
Great. I think especially just that view, that iconic view from South Parks, and the fact that you were just bringing in all of those different other elements, iconic elements around the Oxford skyline, and really taking that into consideration with this new building. So I guess then I want to sort of narrow the focus a little bit more on Jesus, because this is an extension of the ancient college site. So how did you manage to propose a new building that was respectful of the heritage and integrated some of the integrity of the older structures? So what materials did you use? Where can we find visual references to the older parts of college in the design, if there are any?
Thanks, Brittany, for the question. So the college has such a richness in history and also diversity of different ages and how it's grown. So this is the map of the college as it's found in the Royal Commission, showing the first quad and the second quad. First quad just was built between the 1571 to 1620, and the second quad between 1639 and 1713. And so we studied those maps, but we also did quite an extensive research and a heritage assessment. Just going a step further, I will go to the references in a second. And just in the first instance, before we jump to conclusions, me and my colleagues were reviewing the archive. You can see some image up here of us looking at old archive material that can be found, which is really interesting. There's actually a section through one of the old pubs which used to be on the Northgate side, not there any longer, which could be found in the archive. And out of these archive materials, we put together maps that show the sequencing of how the building plot developed. And also we visited site with the college, with the steering group, which was formed to help us develop the scheme, and just visited all the various spaces to understand how they are used, what is appreciated by the various college members, what maybe works well, what doesn't work well, and how that can influence the new design. And that really influenced the external, the envelope, but also the massing and the spaces itself and how the spaces are created. One area I just thought I might focus on is the Core Market elevation. And we've seen earlier that aerial shot from before Marks and Spencer was built. So Marks and Spencer had actually various iterations on the site. So you see an earlier 1940s version here in the picture to the right, which then was taken down and redone in the 1960s with the building that you probably all remember. A few elements that we felt were very key to a new building, which reflects the modern day. So we weren't, but equally needs to reflect also the history of the site, was these buildings, especially on the corner, that form like a bookend, or that form something that gives the mass an end. So we have a bookend towards Market Street, then we also have a bookend towards that W.H. Smith building, and both of them are framing a more central portion, which represents what's above, which is student bedrooms, and shows what's there, and that was critical for the design. And then also to have some variation in the elevation in the design. You can see the building in the bottom right hand corner, which is 13 Cornmarket Street, which was the corner building before M&S took over that plot, and it was developed in 1960s. And then also in terms of materials, we walked around site. Obviously, it's beautiful Clipsham stone that is being used on most of the college buildings. There are a few exceptions. And then there are amazing articulations. So very early on, we looked at the various streets, how it varies through the time as well. I mean, and how, for example, staircase 18 was done very differently, but also with Clipsham stone. And how we can maybe put that into a facade. So very early on, this is an early render of the elevation, which shows windows. And at that point, we also looked at how can we articulate that, how can we put, maybe use hood molds, and how can we use the window reveals, pushing them in, pushing the windows in to show the bronze and the darker sleeves of the windows. How can we use sloped sills to ensure a water runoff is facilitated, but also to give it the articulation which makes the old buildings interesting. And then I've just put a little image in from site, recently taken, with the scaffold going down with this elevation to Cornmarket, where you can see the reveals of the window with the stone protruding. You can see the hood mold around, and the dormers on the on top for the student rooms, which I think was one of our key elements. There are other links to the college, but I felt, Brittany, that that's the key one, really.
Great, and that it's amazing to actually see that as the physical structure now getting revealed. And so it looks so sharp, that image. It looks like graphic design, but it is actually what's already revealed to the public. And it's just so beautiful to see that richness of that stone matching the older part of college. Can you talk a little bit about the building you were mentioning before, about opening it up and access to the building, and how that might be an improvement, a little bit different from the historic walls of college, and how we're both being sympathetic to that, but also creating maybe new access points? Maybe talk about the connectivity between the old college and this new building.
Yes, so accessibility within the college, for the college, but also for students, and connectivity were crucial to the design, but also to the brief, really, to create more spaces that are fully accessible. The existing college site, as beautiful as it is, has its challenges. I mean, currently, I'm just going to the next slide, which is like a cut through both the first, the second quad, and then also transitioning into the fourth quad. Most of you will have entered the college via Till Street, or maybe Ship Street. I guess that's also an option. Past the lodge, and then past the beautiful hall, up the steps, past the hall, down the steps again into the second quad. So there are quite a few level challenges in the existing site. So one of the key elements was to improve that, and to give the college maybe an asset that transitions or helps to navigate the challenges of accessibility, from a literal physically accessibility point, but also maybe from a more visual accessibility point of view. So on Cornmarket Street, which is the main entrance to where the main entrance is to the new building from a college point, so you've got an entrance point where the cursor is hovering, which is roughly opposite Wagamama's, if you know what Wagamama's is. So that's on this side, on the other side, where the old loading bay used to be. If you remember the old building, will be the new entrance to a new lodge, not replacing the old one. It's just a secondary lodge. for the Northgate development, and then also an entrance to the academic facilities, including the digital hub and the teaching space. And then also the existing building had quite a, when I have some pictures later, quite a solid wall, a very tall wall against the Fellows Library. So that will be opened up visually, and a new gate created on access to the Merrick Library, which will give you at certain days, it's up to the college, it's not a primary access on a day-to-day running, but maybe on open days or on other opportunities, it could be opened up and this route be made accessible. And also it's stepping back. So the existing line, you can just see a faint line in this image, was quite much forward to the paving, so that we are pulling back, we're giving more to the street, and we're making this accessible to the city. But then also, as you go in, you have several lifts in the building. So we have 3 lifts, one around staircase 26, one around staircase 23, which will allow every student, if they don't want to use the stairs or can't use the stairs, to use the lift and use all floors, will be fully accessible. They will be able to transition to the event space, the cafe, and to the various teaching spaces. And that will also help the connectivity to the lower level. So as you come from the 3rd quad through what was the Fellows Garden, you can go into staircase 23 and then travel up the stair and be fully accessible to the student accommodation that is on the upper floors. And also, if you want to go in to the 2nd quad, you can now go in via the Northgate development, and it's all level to go to the 2nd quad. And there will be a new connection between the SCR and the memorial room, which will give you even a quicker shortcut if you want that. Great.
That's really exciting. I think one of the things that I love that this new entrance to college is doing, well, first of all, it's opening up a medieval avenue that ran behind college. So I think that's really exciting, and it gives this great visual to 3rd quad and the tower and where the Merrick Library is. And also, I think on Market Street, there's this fantastic reveal. Since we've taken down part of the wall there, it is going to be replaced by a fence, but that fence structure offers some transparency. And what I love about that is in the room, I think where it's sort of against the memorial room, but above it, that Fellows Library, it reveals now a really beautiful arched window of that Fellows Library, that ancient, fantastic looking, most Gothic, I would say, structure of a window, where I think before, with this sort of solid wall, we were missing some of that beautiful architectural feature. So I think it's fantastic to integrate some new pieces that bring to life some of the older covered pieces of college and bits of architectural gems that we already had existing at the college. So one of the buzzwords, I guess, is sustainability and environmentally friendly. That's coming around with all of the new builds around Oxford, especially. I think that it would be really exciting to hear the contribution that this building might make on that front, if you could share that.
Of course. Really early on, I forgot to say, there is like also, if you see the slide down here, like even in briefing and concept designs of 2017, we discussed how we can respond to the challenges we all are facing in terms of sustainability. How can we steward well what we're doing, and how can we respond carefully and lean to the brief given and to the challenge given. There are several responses that we, together with the team, so Smith and Woolwork, who do the structures, and Elementa, who did the services design, developed. And they are interwoven. One is about materiality and the physical presence and the structure. You can see a picture on the top, which is the CLT frame. So everything up from level 2 is CLT, cross-laminated timber, which has a lower embodied carbon footprint and therefore is better for our environment, also quick. Who has seen it go up? Also, it was in the middle of the pandemic, so maybe not many people have. It was very, I think the college has an amazing video on their website, so it went up very, very quickly, which is a benefit to every builder. And then we also have ground source heat pumps, which will use the heat of the earth really to heat water, which will then be used for the heating of the spaces within the Northgate development. The Northgate development has no gas provision. There's no gas needed to use the building and running it, which is we feel is a good thing. And then we use also solar. So we have PV panels on the roof, which aren't installed yet, but you will see in due course, or you actually won't see them because they're very well positioned as we are in Oxford. And also in terms of materiality, the U value, so the thermal performance of the building is incredibly high, so really well performing. And also in terms of maybe more the softer elements of sustainability, such as biodiversity, which is improved, so there are new habitat areas for birds and bats. There is also, as part of the scheme, we did a bit of work to the bicycle storage on Turl Street, which provides more cycle provision for the college and the students. And then also you talked about materials, Brittany, and like just how we use materials and how we choose materials locally, finding them so they don't need to travel that far. So up here is a picture of the quarry visit where the stone came from. So that happened quite early on in the process, to look at the stone, to find the blocks and to have the blocks ready. The blocks were bought before the frame was up, so they were ready, waiting, and at the quarry and for Stamford. That's Stamford Quarry up here, and then also to steward them well, to position them well. So the panels down where the cursor is currently on the left-hand side of this slide are with sample panels in college, which the college looked at and decided, yes, this is the right decision, this is the right way of how we're laying it, how we're using this material well, and in a good way. There's probably more on sustainability, but this is a snapshot of where we went.
Thank you so much. And I think, and I remember actually that site visit to the quarry, and it looks sort of straight out of Indiana Jones. So thank you for kind of showing us a little bit about the origin of these materials. And so in terms of the building and what we're gaining from a college community standpoint, as you said, we're gaining that new student accommodation, teaching and study spaces, that digital hub, student cafe, and new quad. So this is a massive new structure that's going to greatly enhance what we're able to deliver to the college community, at the very heart of our historic site. And I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit of a wider perspective. What will this new building add in terms of public value to the city? What will people outside of college more widely be able to appreciate and get to understand from this building?
Great question. And I think with this development being in such a crucial position within Oxford, it's so important to obviously to give something great to the college, but also to respond holistically to the city, to it. These diagrams are from quite an early process that we did during the planning decisions that we had as part of our discussions with the council. We looked at how can we respond to the streetscape with the facade, but also with the massing. And so as part of this, we studied all the various layouts and how to respond to them. The two facades to Core Market and to Market Street, and all the, you could argue there's a third facade with the roof as it's visible from so many tall buildings, which we also considered very carefully, and how these are visible from St. Mary's and from St. Michael's, from Carfax. But from the street, we opened up the elevations more. If you remember, everything used to be blocked. Obviously, there will be it will be interesting to see how retailers are responding to it. We have already the college has already the GPs on board, which will use part of that retail space, which is a great benefit to the broader Oxford to the broader Oxford team, and they will provide accessible entrance for them. So there is a more active frontage to core market, but maybe the more impactful opening up, and we alluded to it earlier when we talked about accessibility, will be the change to Market Street. Overall, just a few reminders on the right hand side what it was before. So you have this wall that we talked about, the loading bay, and well, there was Superdrug, I think there was broker, and then there was this little shop. So the college, the new building is peeling back. We are giving some a small footprint back to the city. This beautiful window that Brittany was referring to earlier, now that the wall is gone, we can see it into the memorial room. You were able to see it before from the inside if you have a meeting in the memorial room and enjoying it, but from the outside it was a hidden gem and nobody would be able to see it. So in terms of the streetscape, that will be brought back, and there is a similarly at like the Northgate project, there is another project currently that the college together the city is looking at and how to improve Market Street, but that's still in the early stages, but to improve it, to be more to bring it up to maybe a bit more of a pedestrianized standard, and there's lots of parking vehicles, to maybe find a way of mitigating that, to go over the city and the county, but also to create those two openings into the digital hub, but also into the lodge, will give great activity to the street. So currently this loading bay, which perhaps didn't give too much to the street, is gone. Not will be, it is gone. And giving that back to the street will be a great asset for Oxford. And I think the next,
Great. I think we're all very excited actually with part of the footprint of redevelopment and redesign. I know that the Jericho Cheese Company has had, which is a local cheesemonger, has had interest in a bit of the site, a bit of some of the redevelopment of college spaces and commercial spaces. We're very excited about that GP surgery as well coming in, and what you've done there, because they'll be inhabiting the basement, most of the basement part of this new build. You've done some very clever light wells and opportunities for natural light to come into that space. And so that's something that we're very excited to give back to the city. As well as I think this pedestrian street is going to be a great opportunity as well for more foot traffic into the covered market, which is just a beloved and still thriving heart of Oxford that many of our alumni will remember. If you can just tell us a little bit about the logistics of this design, though. What were some of the challenges that you faced in designing this building, and how did the MICA team navigate them?
Yeah, designing it was a great joy, I must say, but also challenging at points for various reasons. It's a very complex brief with different uses, different requirements, different needs, really. And one of the elements I'm focusing on 2 points. There are probably more, but 2 key elements. One of which was the digital hub and the teaching and the cafe space, and how we can best weave it into the building, and how can we best stack it, make it accessible, and create this space which allows students and staff and fellows and the city to access it and also to use it really well. So one of this was, so it is a diagram of just accessibility and maybe cleverly using particularly the lift, and how it can be helping the digital hub, which is the element in red, and then also the tower, which we get to in a bit, and the cafe. So there's a cafe in the building which will serve the students and staff and members. But the digital hub, this is a very early diagram on the top left-hand side, where we were talking about, so how can this space, which allows people to gather from 200 down to maybe 10 people, how can we create a space which allows that and is an asset to the college, and not just a lecture theatre, but just is something, a space, and that can allow the college really to utilize all the knowledge and to bring it to the next level, to use digital media, to bring to the forefront all the knowledge, and also to use things, the views and the setting that you are in, to tie back to the historic buildings and to the history of the college, but also to take it forward into the 21st century. And so this small little diagram then developed into a whole series of further diagrams, which I haven't shown in here, which then led us to this space with, actually have a little diagram with like various staircases. There's like a small little staircase which is being built now, but it's full of scaffolding, so there can't be great pictures being taken. But this is this stair here. So over 3 floors, we have this digital hub, which will allow, in this sketch, you can see lots of people sitting in it. Hopefully when we'll soon be able to do that at one point again. And allowing over 3 spaces for people to gather. Additional to the digital hub, we have spaces which we call the breakout spaces. So they are spaces that are beyond, and which allow 4 large meeting rooms for roughly between, you can gather 50 people in a lecture arrangement to 20. And then you have on the first floor additional teaching spaces for the students, because the Merrick Library is, if anybody's been in it recently, is at its limits. So just to allow more space where students can study, discuss, and meeting rooms that can be booked for fellows to and students and others to use. And maybe just, these are final images. So there were various iterations, models being built. We had visual reality that we could see and design it together with the steering group and students, and during various presentations to the college and the wider college body in college. And then so this was one of the final images of this space of the digital hub. And to the right hand side is actually an image from site earlier in the year, when, so at the moment it's all filled with scaffolding because they're putting actual finishes on, but this was before, when they've cast the lower floors, and once the staircases are slowly appearing already in this image. But you can start to get a sense of the space of this digital hub. But it will be filled with the modern technology for display, and for connectivity, to be able to allow all the fellows and members that are booking it to use it really well. And some further images in there of these small breakout spaces where students can, or members that are using this space, can go to have a break, to have a discussion, to maybe just sit in quiet and read their book or work on their laptop, but to create this diversity of space. And yeah, and just again, some images just to give you a bit of a sneak preview of what's about to be revealed in due course. And then the other design challenge, I think, was because we've talked already, Brittany mentioned, there's a lot of student accommodation. So we have 68 postgraduate rooms, 4 fellow sets, and to arrange them really was another challenge, which we battled with, discussed with the college, went back and forth, how we can arrange them around the staircases, how we can arrange them around, we call them, you may read clusters here, we call them clusters or family units where there's a kitchen, not usually, in all of them is a kitchen and bedrooms, so you can use the kitchen together. But how can we arrange them around a 4th quad, and how can we make a 4th quad that sits on a 2nd floor level feel like it's a quad in the air, which is a great challenge. And we went through, again, several iterations with models. You can see down at the bottom left, some models that we could take apart. You can see like the digital hub, where we could all look into it together to understand the connectivity, to understand how can we make these stairs work, to feel like it's a flow between the spaces. So yeah, so these were 2 challenges that I think, in discussing them and working them through the college and with the various team members, we got hopefully a good result that we feel really pleased with, because you start to see them now being revealed on site.
That's really exciting, and I think the floating quad and bringing in some of that flora in there is actually very exciting, because that's certainly going to be a big challenge, but one that we've all talked about. Great, putting in lovely beds and bringing in some of that greenery up in that new space will be really exciting. And then what we're also planning to do with that new walkway, that path that was the Fellows Garden, which wasn't much of a garden, frankly. So I think we're going to be bringing in more trees and more elements there to kind of bring nature back into college, which is excellent. I just wanted to touch upon the tower room, the Great Tower, if I might, and also the views of college. So we're going to have fantastic spire views, and could you just tell us about the scale of this part of the building, and especially just maybe that east-facing window and what we can expect to gain from this elevation?
Yes, that's great question. The tower or gatehouse, we sometimes refer to it as gatehouse, sometimes, because it's just like, that's the, I guess, more of the use of it is on the, as we said before, on the corner of the development to the southeast. So it's this where the cursor is hovering, which includes the entrance and the new lodge at the foot of this gatehouse. And then at the top you have an amazing tower gallery, and there are various other tower rooms below, which will also benefit from these views. And I think, as I said earlier, this is an earlier diagram to just understand how can we bringing up these event or cafe and tower spaces up to the second, third, and fourth floor gives us capacity to put the digital hub and the teaching spaces on the ground and first floor and lower ground. I'm jumping straight to the reveal of some of you may have seen these images already. So this is the tower gallery on the fourth floor of the new development. And this large window, which faces to the east towards the Radcliffe camera, will be one of the key features. So you can look up from Market Street, but you can also look out as you stand in it. It will be very interestingly paneled with timber paneling. And the window itself is actually I can give you the dimension, and I have the dimension of the Fellows Library window as well. And so this window will be 7 meters tall and 2.2 meters wide. Just as a comparison, that window to the Fellows Library is 3 meters wide and 4.4 meter tall. So it's a bit taller and a bit narrower, to respond to the challenge of having a gatehouse that doesn't feel too bulky, doesn't feel too big, but still being useful and usable for the college. And so this beautiful space the college can use it in various ways, whether it's exhibitions or dining or meeting rooms. But yes, there will be, and there are other windows in the room. So if where the picture is taken, to the south and to the north are windows as well, looking into the quad, so you can see what's happening in the quad, and looking towards Carfax and towards Tom Tower to the south. So I think there it is.
That's absolutely brilliant. I think there's so many elements to the building, and I think what we wanted to do was to create this opportunity for just some open discussion. If some of our audience members have questions, it might be we can stop sharing the screen, and if there are questions, we would love to answer them at this time. Perhaps I could pose one first, Mandy, which is just asking you, out of all of these different elements that we've discussed today, what is making you most excited? What's your favorite part of the design or element that you're looking forward to us experiencing?
It's a very difficult question, because there are so many brilliant elements, but maybe I focus on the student rooms, because I feel like the digital hub and the tower gallery get so much. We've looked at so many amazing images, but I think the student rooms will be great. And there are some, the views from them are already phenomenal when we go and and see them. So having the ability to look out into the green of, I mean, because you're so far up, you will see all the hills beyond, and you can see, like, you're in the middle of the city, but you can see the green, which is brilliant. And also I think one of my other favorite rooms will be the student lounge. I think that will be a beautiful space.
Great. So we have a question from an alumnus. So any interesting archaeological discoveries during the works? And what was the name of the medieval alley where the Fellows Garden was? Oh gosh, that's caught me off guard, but I bet you remember.
I do remember. I'm being very careful.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah. Be very careful of not using it, because we it's a great name. It's Colburn Lane on that axis, and who knows whether it will be that again, but the axis was Colburn Lane. So the main building footprint, because it had an existing basement, we didn't need to do much digging really, because the existing basement from W.H. Smith was pretty extensive, and we reused the basement, so the walls around it. So there was no medieval, or there were no findings in there. However, on Colburn Lane, there were some findings. There were some fire pits that were found, but they all were left in situ. They were recorded by Oxford Archaeology. They were taken photos of, and then they were protected, because we just had to take the ground up to do rewiring of below ground drainage and things that make the building work, but we didn't have to take them out. So the finds that were made were kept in situ on Colburn Lane.
Great. We've got a question. I don't know if you can see, Mandy, from Stephen.
Yeah.
Good enough, who says, were there particular challenges you faced with the planners, other statutory bodies over the design? He's got a personal stake, personal interest there, working with his local civic society, reviewing plans with several conservation areas in play. So, you know, he certainly wants to know what kind of difficulties you might have run up from that point of view.
I mean, it's probably fair to say that it was an intense period of time, the planning period, and the time up to it as well. And I mean, the college had already done a great job even before engaging architects in the competition, in that as so far that David and other members of the college had talked with the various societies in Oxford, such as the Civic Society, the Oxford Preservation Trust, the planners, to make them aware something is going to happen. Historic England as well. Something's going to happen. We don't know what yet, but we want you on board. So from I think 2 months after the competition, we had our first presentation to the planners, which was a bit of a quick turnaround. And we took them on board all the way through, which helped significantly. But I mean, challenges occur about height. So the gatehouse was of great conversation and was shaped by all parties, whether that's St. Michael's, the parish, because you can see it from there, from the tower there. It's very close, the north elevation, which is a bit of a hidden elevation, really. You only see it from the JCR or from some of the rooms in staircase 18. But so there were challenges mostly about height. Materials were discussed at great length and articulation of facade, but I don't think there were any challenges. I think because we took everybody on board and we explained to them the intent, and that was welcomed. I hope that answered it. I'm happy to go into more detail, but I think.
Well, we can always come back to it. We can encourage, of course, you know, Stephen, if you have more that you'd like her to cover, we can come back to that. We have another question from Belinda, who wants to know, you know, if you were starting again now, what other sustainable aspects might you have considered to incorporate into the building? Maybe just expand a little bit more about the sustainable elements that we did choose to incorporate. I know also one element that I find very interesting was that we didn't go with a hard fixed plan for the technology in the space. And part of that was this interest for us to remain very adaptable and to be able to always kind of shift and try new technologies in the digital hub space. We didn't want to have sort of fixed screens and create ourselves in a situation where we couldn't kind of change and adapt with time. So that's kind of one piece that I'm interested in terms of flexibility side of things. But in terms of looking at environment and sustainability and making kind of subtle changes if we can, or anything that you could have planned differently or might still have us be able to incorporate going forward would be interesting.
I think it's a great question from Belinda. I mean, I think there's a lot of elements that we probably did right. I mean, I think that maybe more personally, I find water really interesting. I mean, we cap the water usage in terms of using of appliances and making sure that appliances that are installed do reduce the water usage, but maybe using some of the water runoff for using the toilets, for example. Personally, I find that is really interesting. It's a challenge because you need to store the water somewhere. It could smell. There are concerns over it, but I think that's something. If we would start again, maybe I would maybe look at that more carefully, whether it should be introduced. At the moment, I mean, we're attenuating the water, so the water runoff from the roof is attenuated, but we're not using it. We're not using it again for the building. And other than that, I think not. I mean, modern technology in terms of renewables are changing, and I think because we didn't use gas, I think that was a big step, and we're really grateful that all parties, consultants, and college supported us on and was on the same page with that. I'm sure there are other things, but yeah, the water is for me the one that I would take on board for if I do some, for the next one.
For the next one, brilliant.
Well, I mean, it's something that like, I mean, I don't know, water, in the climate, the challenges we're all facing, I think we need to be resilient and adapt probably as well. So
absolutely. Got a question from Rodney, and I think actually I could take it on, which is, what is the timetable for progressive opening and temporary or permanent use of the whole development? So just an update on that for everyone. We are opening the building and for kind of all access in early 2022. So our plan is for kind of the students to get into site and to get used to using it, for the college to, since it's a huge new development, it also means there are more opportunities for more staff to get used to that part of site and catering and the different aspects that are going on there. So it's that we're moving into a soft opening period in early 2022, and looking, of course, to have visitors and alumni on site as we move into 2022. So at the start of the year, we're really opening it up for college and getting everyone used to this new building, which is just stunning, and we can hardly believe we're just so close to it. And then I think progressively, quite soon after, we'll be inviting more and more visitors on site. Another element as well is that we have a digital hub fellow. She is a member of the college who has an academic background in kind of her academic background is she came to us from Cambridge, and her academic background is in digital area of research, and she has been the curator of a lot of the programs that are going to be coming into the digital hub, which will be shared with both the college community, with wider Oxford, and then of course online with different participating institutions, and hopefully also some public opportunity as well to participate in the programs that will be running in the digital hub. So I think, although that isn't a menu of different activities that we've been sharing more widely, that's definitely all been happening in the background. And so we actually have the first year of activity nearly fully planned, and that will be slowly. I think we're going to be doing some trailers, some teaser opportunities to see what's coming there. So that's been very exciting for us. We now have Christopher. Modern buildings often become dated quickly. This is a good point. And so in terms of both design and functionality. So was this a concern for this development? What did you do to keep the building vibrant over time in the next decade, bearing in mind that, you know, once our first quad and our second quad were new buildings, and so I think they've aged quite nicely.
I think this is a great question. I mean, I think I would even go further. I think in our approach to the brief, I think we've already tried to address slightly the use question, because I think modern buildings usually become dated because they respond to a quick need. They respond to something that's required right now, but it's probably not required in 10, 20 years. So I think when we developed the brief for student accommodation and for the academic spaces, we did quite a lot of review of the existing space of the college just to understand what happened. And for the student accommodation, it just needed to be designed. I mean, it's likely that the college will have lots of students for some duration. So it was about the quality of the materials, making sure it's built well, but also making sure the college can adapt it if needed. Similarly, for all the academic spaces, I think flexibility. I don't tend to like the name sometimes, or the words flexibility, because it can go backwards, that it's too flexible and nobody knows what to do with it. But I think to design it in a way that can be flexibly used, and also if, for example, if students want to use more space, that the lines can be adjusted between the digital hub and the study spaces, that it can be fluid and that it can be not just used by one party, which I think sometimes becomes a reason why it's dated. I mean, in terms of the physical manifestation of the building, in terms of fenestrations and design, I hope with some of the studies that we did, weaving it back into the historic language, that has overcome perhaps that point that you said it will be dated. I hope it will age with the historic buildings and just become another element, key element that gives character to Jesus College.
I think also the weathering of the stone over time is going to bring it that much more of a cohesive look to the older buildings as well. So we've got that opportunity for a bit of age to actually help progress the integration of the sites together. Looks like Stephen was very satisfied by your answer, so thanks for writing that in, Stephen. Michael has a question here in terms of any comments from the Prince of Wales on the exterior of the design. So maybe I should take that one on again, which is that we did have the Prince of Wales visiting college in 2022, but his visit to college was to support our Welsh access. And we had Welsh students visiting the college that day. And so his tour actually came at an unfortunate time when actually the brand new building was completely under scaffolding. So we had to only, just hope that he, took a little promenade and was able to see what was going on, but you couldn't really peek in at all. And you couldn't even really get a sense of what was to come. So unfortunately, we don't have any direct comments from him on the new building, but he did come to college when we opened the old members building in third quad, which at the time was feels like very 1970s appropriate architecture, quite modern in terms of what the rest of the space of college was delivering, and he was there for that opening. So he has been present in college opening, and we'd be hopeful actually that he would maybe come back in when this space is opened and get to see it, but no plans yet that I can reveal. And when he was here just before lockdown in March 2020, unfortunately, you couldn't get a clear view of what was going on inside, although a lot was happening. So thanks very much, Michael. Sorry. So I think that we might be at the end of our questions. Sorry. So if there's any, I'm just having a look here. Yes, I think that there's, I think we're at the end of our questions, unless I'm missing a hand. Well, Mandy, if I can just take this opportunity, because we've had 4 years of interaction about the site, and just being part of the steering committee and just getting to know you over the last 4 years and getting to know the firm and what you're doing for college. It's just been so exciting to work with you. And so right when I started with 2017, we hadn't even broken ground. So the enormous from sort of summer 2018 to now, the progress has just been extraordinary and very, very fast, I might add. So Steve offers his congratulations and thank you so much again for taking your time out today, Mandy, and for sharing a little bit more about this fantastic new building that's right on the horizon.
Thank you so much, Mandy, and to Joy Brittany, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. That was fascinating, and we are so excited to be able to be part of that building, and obviously to welcome our alumni and eventually into that space as well.